We're back with South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. Governor, you sent some troops down, National Guard, to the border. I think this is the fifth time.
Fifth time that we have. I was the first governor to send National Guard troops originally when Governor Abbott first set up Operation Lone Star and asked for help. A lot of governors had sent or were considering sending law enforcement, but I recognized back then that our National Guard soldiers are uniquely trained to fit into this type of mission, partner with other agencies, federal agencies, other National Guard deployments, and to really understand that this is a war zone down there. So this is the fifth group of people that we will send down. This time, I'm sending engineers, builders, because when I called Governor Abbott right away, the day he was being threatened by the federal government that they were going to come in and cut down his razor wire, I called him and I said, what exactly do you need? Like, what is actually helpful to you? And he said, we built a barrier that actually is working. And that's when they took us to court to force us to take it down, is because we built a barrier out of shipping containers, cattle panels, and razor wire that even these military-aged men couldn't get across, and it worked, and that's why the federal government is coming after us. And I said, then you need builders. You need people to help build more barrier, and that's what we're going to send to them.
Why do you think? I mean, the Biden administration is now admitting for the first time, it's a little bit late, that there's a problem at the border. We've got all the fentanyl pouring in, the precursor drugs coming from China, and it's been. And you can see the videos. You can read about it on Twitter or on TikTok, but you don't even have to. You can look at the video and see for yourself. The people are just pouring in. Why do you think the Biden administration was so slow to admit to? Because I always thought that if anything bad happened, if anyone got across that border with a WMD, they were going to own it because they've been so resistant to it. But why do you think they resisted for so long, calling the border a problem?
I think they're still resisting.
But why?
They're doing this on purpose, Greta.
Why?
Because they're trying to fundamentally remake our country into a socialist country. I mean, that is the Democrat Party of today. It really is. We are now in a shirts and skins game. It's either people who love America or people who don't love America anymore. So this is still on purpose. He just recognizes that it's hurting him politically now. A year ago, there was articles, and it was very transparent that these countries like Venezuela, Cuba, were emptying out their prisons and sending them to America and through these open borders. And it wasn't just people who were on the known terrorist watch list. It was people who actually were other governments' responsibilities that they didn't want anymore. They emptied out their mental health institutions and sent them to America because they said, we don't want to take care of these people anymore. Go there because their border is so open. Those are the people that are coming across that border.
See, I would be in favor of socialism if you could identify one country where it's working.
Right.
I mean, that's the problem. Is that I'm willing to try anything, but the problem is that we do have examples where there's socialism, and there's no country where it's working. That's the problem.
Exactly right.
And that's what I don't get.
Well, what's interesting to me is that I have the cartels now set up in South Dakota, is that these Mexican cartels that have been laundering money and proliferating this drugs and human trafficking have a presence in our state. They have set up on Native American tribes and have a presence there and are recruiting more and more members to distribute drugs throughout the Midwest and to traffic individuals because those are sovereign nations. I have no jurisdiction in my tribal lands. The only people who can come in there and enforce law is the Department of Justice, and the federal government has a responsibility to bring law and order. Yep. So that's how smart they are, and they're partnering with China. These cartels are all using Chinese-developed apps to run their laundering systems.
When I was down in Nicoclea, which is the staging ground to come up the Darien Gap, is that I met a number of Chinese people. I met people from many countries, but they had apps telling them exactly what to do, from China to Ecuador, where they didn't need a visa to come into the country. They couldn't get off in Mexico because they needed a visa, but they go to Ecuador and then come up the Darien Gap.
Yeah, so it is definitely a professional, more and more developed system all the time. And the fact that President Biden is still allowing this inhumanity to happen to people down there at the southern border and fundamentally remake our country. I just want people to know that, I know this is political, but it's on purpose, that this is to change us forever.
South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, welcome to D.C. Always nice to see you.
It's always been fun, Greta.